We're doing some further testing, testing the normal stove fan that everyone uses on these buddy heaters versus the new portable buddy fan. You can see it's a power fan accessory from Mr. Heater, and it is a thermoelectric fan just like these are. However, it attaches really nicely to the heater and is specifically made for this. Again, this is a new accessory. We're just going to test the output, see how much it actually flows air versus one of these using a thermometer here. We're gonna have it above it and see how hot it gets with this versus that, and then we're also gonna try to hold it back out here and see the temperature difference. I am in a garage here, but it's uninsulated and fairly cold, so we should be able to get pretty accurate readings. Okay, firing this guy up. We're gonna go ahead and get a measure of the temperature in the shop right now. We are at, call it 56. Get us pretty close there. So I'm going to let this warm up a bit, and then I'm going to set this up here, and we'll see how hot it gets directly above it without either of the fans on. Okay, just so we don't overheat the shop, got the door open, window open, so it stays at about the outside temperature. We've had this going for a while, and this is settling at right about 100 degrees, maybe 102 there. It's been hovering right around there. So this is without the fan. Now we are going to throw the stove fan on. Let's see what that changes. All right, stove fan's been running for a while. Let's take a look at the temperature here. It seems to have settled in. We're running at about, I'll call it 88. 88 degrees. Now we're gonna pull this guy off, and we're gonna put the new buddy fan on and see what that does. Buddy fan's on and running. Take a look at the temperature here. Now it's kind of settled in, and we are at 84, 85. So a little bit cooler than the stove fan, which we had at 88 degrees. So not much of a difference. This isn't super scientific, so you could say there might be some errors in my calculations, but yeah, we'll go with 84. So next up, I'm gonna take this off, go back to just the stove, and I'm gonna set up a spot about a foot in front of the buddy heater here, and we'll see the temperature differences in that. All right, you'll have to excuse my extremely ghetto setup here. I got an old camshaft out of a car. Propping up my thermometer here in front. We're about a foot away from the heater. It's been going for a little while now with the stove fan on. And we are at right at 100 degrees, I'll call it. 100 degrees, and that's about a foot away from the buddy heater. Stove fan is rolling. And surprisingly, we are at just under 120 degrees there. I'll call it like 118. So we're actually warmer with the stove fan than we were with the buddy fan. So this is quite an interesting test. Looking at the top of the fan, when I hold the thermometer about a foot from the top of the fan, with no fan we get 102 degrees above it, pretty steady. We go to a stove fan, we're 88, and then we go to a buddy fan, 84 degrees. So the buddy fan is definitely doing a better job of keeping heat from rising directly above the heater. But if we go to the front without a fan at all, I had 120 degrees, a foot from the front, about right here. Stove fan was 118, which is pretty much the same. When you get to the buddy fan, we drop down to 100 degrees in the same spot, which is pretty weird. And I decided to test it with just the tray and the buddy fan, and the tray only. And still with the buddy fan, I got 95, but once I take the buddy fan off, back up to 120 degrees with just the tray only. We started with 56 degrees in the garage here, and I left the window and the door open, so it stayed roughly the same, and only was hotter right next to the heater here. So really interesting results that the buddy fan is actually showing cooler in front. The placebo, I guess if you would call it, is that when the buddy fan is running, I can actually feel more of the heat here, kind of my head, which is kind of where the camera is at. I can actually feel it blowing on me. With the stove fan, I can't feel it as much. So just going off of feel, it seems like the buddy heater is doing a way better job. Looking at that though, it's not. My theory with the cooler temps with the buddy fan versus the stove heater is that the stove is actually sucking air in from the back, which is the hot air that's rising above here. The buddy heater, on the other hand, is only blowing out here, and its air inlet is actually in the back. So we're sucking in cool air with the buddy fan and pushing it through the heat. And I think that's why I'm feeling it more. It's got a more powerful fan. It's just not quite as warm as the stove fan. So if you're looking for overall heat distribution in an enclosed area, like a camper or your garage or a tent, I think the buddy fan is the way to go. It's gonna do a lot better of circulating the heat, keeping a more even temperature in the room because it's sucking in that cold air and blowing out the warm air over top and not letting all the heat rise directly to the top of the tent. The one thing the stove fan does really have going for it is how quiet it is. It basically makes no noise at all when it spins versus this buddy heater fan, which as you can hear, makes a decent amount of noise. So that's definitely a consideration when you're hunting because you can't be scaring away your game with this fan going all the time. So this thing is dead quiet though. As far as pros and cons on both of these, I gotta say there is a lot more pros to the buddy fan than there is cons. First of all, it's attached to the stove. It's not gonna fall off if you accidentally bump the stove or tip it over or anything like that. It stays attached to the stove. You don't need to do anything special to it. All you gotta do is turn it on and go, and that fan will start. When you have this set up, you gotta put the tray on, then you gotta set it on there, and then make sure the stove is pretty level. And if you bump the stove or the fan at all, it falls off and crashes down, makes a loud bang. And it's just kind of a pain in the butt to travel with if you're taking it camping or something like that. If it's going to be stationary in your garage or something, it may not be that big of a deal. But for me, when I do my camping trips and things like that, I always have to take extra caution bringing one of these so that I don't bend up the blades and ruin it. I think the buddy fan is going to be the one for me for pretty much every situation that I use my buddy heater for, except for hunting. For hunting, I think I'm just going to keep one of these in my hunting shack and use this for hunting because of the loudness of this buddy fan. It's just feel like it's going to be a little bit too loud for that. If you guys have any questions about the buddy fan or my setup, make sure you drop a comment below and ask away. Again, I know this wasn't a super scientific experiment, but it did kind of show a few differences in the two fans, and hopefully I gave you some pros and cons that you can turn into your own situation. And yeah, have a good day.